Hi, feminine ladies. Welcome back to the Feminine Standard, where we balance softness, build boundaries, and become all that God has created us to be. I pray that you've been well. In today's video, we are going to get into the Jezebel spirit and how, when it operates in a family generation after generation, how it makes women hard instead of soft and feminine. One of the books that I'm going to be referencing today is by Steve Sampson. It is called Confronting Jezebel, Discerning and Defeating the, the Spirit of Jezebel, the Spirit of Control. And basic foundation knowledge is that Jezebel was a queen married to King Ahab. And the warning that King Ahab got before he married Jezebel was not to marry a woman from and of her background. Her father was in a lot of different false religions, and God knew that if he married her, those things would be influencing him the way that they influenced her family line. So from the book, it just says that we were introduced to Jezebel in the Old Testament. She's the daughter of Ethbal, a Sidonian king who made a trade agreement with Israel's king Ahab. Ethbal means with Baal, which is Baal, the devil. Baal was in Jezebel's name because she was the offspring of this evil seed. Ahab's father, Omri, the sixth king of Israel, was instrumental in trying to create a friendly relationship between nations. As a result, he formed an alliance with Phoenicia, now Lebanon, through the marriage of his son Ahab to Jezebel. The marriage was meant to seal a peace treaty between two nations, but ended up being a very costly compromise. So actually, I'm going to correct myself. God warning a king not to marry a wife was actually King Solomon. He was warned by God not to marry women from a certain nation because they were going to pervert his reign and get him to worship their gods. King Ahab, as we just learned, came from just a treaty agreement that they wanted to make between two nations, and that's why he married Queen Jezebel. She became queen after she married him. And when they got married, them bringing peace between two people or keeping peace between two people, which God tells us to not keep the peace but to make peace, it made Israel subject to the religious and political practices of Queen Jezebel and her people. This meant that Israel would no longer be following God. They would be following false gods and the practices of divination, witchcraft, and perversion that Jezebel's nation was filled with. And basically, not only was her father evil, but he was some sort of a high priest, and he had a goddess that he served. So in having that principality over that region and then coming as a clean and holy righteous people into agreement through the marriage, it opened Israel up to a world of chaos. And then we get to see in its First Kings that Jezebel just runs rampant all throughout that nation until the time of her death and her untimely demise, because she knew from God, from the prophet's mouth to her, that she had to repent, that she had to stop, that she had to turn away from the evil ways that she was influencing Ahab in, but she didn't stop. And in Revelations, we read that God gave Jezebel chances to repent, but she did not. How does this relate to us? Why does this matter? Because the Jezebel character or spirit wasn't just for those times. It is something that still is prevalent in today's society. We see it in different systems where, mainly with the feminist movement, where it's not just about women getting certain rights. It's taken a step further to then say that basically everything men do is evil and they're constantly trying to oppress us. So in doing that, we're now not working together, we're fighting each other. The feminist movement has an undertone of wickedness to fight the man and to even say that women can do things better than men just because, not even for a specific purpose of, okay, opportunity, representation, access. It goes into a dark place when the mindset of women is that they don't need men, and that if the men were just not here, everything would be better. And that is a lie from the pits of hell. So it matters today because we need to be able to identify it, come against it, and then destroy it. The Jezebel spirit is coming for marriages. She is known as the unhusbander because if we see in the story of Jezebel and Ahab, she usurped his authority. She didn't allow God's righteous order of God, Christ, the man, and then the woman, and the woman being submitted to the man. She made him submit to her. And that's a perversion of the proper flow of power and authority that God created. One of the foundational scriptures of 1 Kings is 1 Kings 21:25. No one else so completely sold himself to what was evil in the Lord's sight as Ahab did under the influence of his wife Jezebel. Jezebel had a lot of manipulation, deception, control, and demonic dominance. The two reigning spirits, or really the one reigning spirit behind the Jezebel spirit, is control. It also can be referred to as demonic dominance. We can see this in certain family lines where maybe you had, some people call it a big mama, where it was their grandmother and she made all the decisions. She decided who was going to marry who. She decided who got praise, who got attention, who got money. She just had favorites. And it was a very matriarchal family where the men didn't have voices, or they didn't really stick around. They were passive, and maybe there was really not many men in the family. The women are these beautiful women, but they're not married. And then that leads to you being the next generation, being the strong woman who does not know how to rest in her femininity, doesn't know how to trust God, doesn't know how to trust her husband or a man to become the lead and the head of the household. The reason why this is important is because if you have had this spirit in your family, and if you never saw women in your family being soft and being in a kingdom marriage, being taken care of by their husbands, being empowered to fulfill their purpose, and being loved properly, then you are going to likely be more inclined to repeat the cycle of being this hardened, strong woman who is susceptible to the Jezebel spirit because you didn't see it modeled, and because you don't know that if you do not become intentional to tear down the Jezebelic system and how it's trying to constantly impact you, then you are likely going to be a victim of it. The characteristics that Steve Sampson mentions in his book of Jezebel are someone who's quick to take or plot on taking power, an illegitimate authority, spoiling the fruitfulness of others, getting others to do their dirty work, control issues, and destroying those who get in their way. It's that I get what I want mindset. It's the Jezebel controller being motivated through extreme insecurity. Likely you'll see that these people had really tough childhoods, and it makes you feel for them, but that's not your issue. They need to heal. So if it is your mom who's super overbearing and she just feels like she has to vicariously live through you. She told you what you were gonna go to school for. She tells you every time, oh, you can't marry him, you can't marry him. Not because, oh, well, he's not a good fit for you, or it doesn't sit right in my spirit, but really just because she doesn't like that person, or just because she realizes if you marry a strong, kingdom-minded man who is in his masculine, that he is going to take away the place of power that she is holding in your life. So the Jezebel spirit is one that we need to have explained to us, because if we don't have it explained, we're going to get comfortable. And the Bible tells us not to tolerate a witch to live. So if you're tolerating people in your family line with this Jezebelic spirit, then you're tolerating witchcraft. You're tolerating a witch to live, and God doesn't want you suffering like that. It is completely tiresome and draining to constantly have to fight off and really just tolerate that spirit. And it doesn't allow you to have any peace or fruitfulness for yourself, because you're too busy trying to please this Jezebel spirit and then have your own life. So if you didn't ever see it modeled to you, women in your family, in happy marriages where the women were able to rest, where the women did not have to work and be independent and grind and figure out all these different ways to get money, and your mind isn't having to constantly be on, how can I sell this thing to get money? How can I, basically prostitute yourself to get money? How can I just constantly be on this level up journey? Not in the way of that it's not good to take care of yourself and lose the weight and fix your hair and fix your skin and your teeth and so on and so forth, but the level up of I constantly need to find a way to basically pull the entire family out of the situation that they're in. It's not your responsibility. That creates the superwoman syndrome, where women feel like they have to, on their backs, carry their entire family. Likely, this Jezebel system is pushed onto the eldest, where they feel like they have to overperform. They feel like if I don't do it, then no one else is going to get there. They feel like, well, I have to apply to the jobs. I have to write the resumes. I have to drop people off, or things won't happen. I have to be the one doing it all on my own. But as women of God, we should be trusting in God to help us. The burden should not be all on you. And when you get married, really the men carry that burden. So I want you to know that it's not your fault that you weren't taught etiquette, that you weren't taught how to be a soft, feminine woman. It's not your fault that you're hard right now, and that you are looking at a softer life, and you aspire for that, and you feel like if you could just rest, it would all be better. But I'm here to tell you that just because you didn't get that model doesn't mean that you cannot, with intentionality, have a soft life, have a beautiful, healthy kingdom marriage where children can model after the love story that you and your husband have. That there doesn't have to be trauma and drama. There doesn't have to be a secret where everyone just keeps it quiet that you were traumatized when you were younger, or that everyone is just going to keep tolerating that Jezebel demonic dominance control spirit in the matriarch of the family, or maybe it's in the father and the men of the family. No one has to continue to have that cycle be a pattern or cycled in your life or in your family's life, but you have to be intentional to stop it. The first way to stop something is to really acknowledge it. Stop ignoring it. Stop acting like it doesn't exist. And now, since we have a better understanding of it, we can actually identify, okay, well, is this something that's actually operating in my family? And if it's operating in my family, how can I make it run into the bloodline until it ran into me? How can I let myself be the last person that this spirit demonically dominates and controls and makes me feel like I just have to bend over for certain people because I don't know how to really have that strength and that power. Jezebel type controllers, another excerpt from the book is Jezebel type controllers are almost always motivated by extreme insecurity. They're usually very wounded people, probably dating back to their childhood. They operate in a protective mode of I'm never going to be hurt or rejected again. Because of their insecurity, they seek preeminence, affirmation, power, and recognition, but in very illegitimate ways. Jezebel wants to control people, turning them to darkness, because anytime you try to take someone's control or you try to manipulate an outcome, not allowing other people to operate in their free will, that is witchcraft. And that's darkness. You're going to the kingdom of darkness to get your way instead of trusting that God's plan will play out in your life. It's a love spell. It's creating a atmosphere of gossip around a person so that they can feel pressured to do something. It's a lot of manipulation. So Jezebel, like Satan, provides a false answer to your problems. It's not a solution. It doesn't fix it. So Jezebel operating in a woman could be a push towards feminism, a push toward you don't need no man, a push towards just come be with us, we got you girl, a push towards lying to you in order to keep you stuck. And just an example of the different traits of Jezebel that I listed earlier. The first one, quickly taking or plotting to take control. This looks like someone who did not work for where they want to be. But maybe they enter into a church and on day one, week one, they want to be the pastor's armor bearer. They want to be the person that is the pastor's right hand man. They want to be the first lady's best friend and they just got there. They want to hold a seat of influence and power that they didn't work for. They just got there and they're already looking and plotting for ways that they can be at the top rank when everyone else had to work their way up, put in whatever years, go through whatever training programs that they had to go to and through mentorship programs before they could reach different levels of leadership. Jezebel Spirit doesn't have time for that. She don't even think that any of that applies to her. She's like, no, she or he, the person operating the spirit, is like, no, I deserve this. I'm going to get this. And usually when they see that they can't manipulate people to get to the ranks quickly, they leave. If they see they can't manipulate and they can't get their way, oh, I'm not here. Just like if someone's dating you, or maybe it's, let's give it back to the generational line. If it's a mother with, they say in psychology, they call it the narcissist spirit. If a mother is not able to get her way with the golden child, or with the child that she deems the golden child, because really that child is just doing whatever she wants them to. The scapegoat child is basically the child that gets beat up on because they don't let her get her way. It's the same thing. They get bashed, they get spoken down to, and they get gossiped about. The golden child is praised and put in high regard. Same thing with the church. If they try to enter a church and they want to get on the prayer team day one, they just want to do everything day one, then that church that doesn't allow it is going to be called a fake church, false prophets. That's not a real man of God leading the ministry. But the church that allows them to grow and doesn't really have real barriers of entry, that church is going to get praised as being the most anointed church that they've ever been to. The next point is illegitimate authority. Again, similarly to the other point, they want to have this sense of authority that they didn't work for, that they didn't earn, that they didn't rightfully and properly enter into. So a lot of times they're going to become friends with someone who does have power or status and kind of puppet them so that they can get their way, even if they're not necessarily the one that gets crowned king or queen. They just still want to be have the ear of the king. The next point is spoils the fruitfulness of others. So in the story of Queen Ahab and King Jezebel, Naboth was a man who had a vineyard next to the kingdom, and King Ahab just wanted it. There was no real reason. There was no official kingly decree of why he needed that property. He just wanted the property. But that property had been running and giving that family generational blessings for so long that they didn't want to just sell it to the king. There really was no price for how valuable that vineyard was to that family. But because King Ahab selfishly wanted it, the fruitfulness of that bloodline that they had blessings generation after generation, she stopped it by killing her family and taking the vineyard. And that stops the fruitfulness or spoils the fruitfulness of others. That in a more modern day moment might look like the narcissistic spirit has been really known to be that person who operates in that spirit who ruins your moment, ruins special moments, ruins your birthday, ruins the anniversary, ruins anything that has a focus on you and not on them. The one upper, the one that's like, well, I did this. Oh, you just got a promotion at work. Well, I was given the certificate of completion at work because I finished my cybersecurity training. Like, girl, it don't have nothing to do with your promotion or the thing that you're celebrating, but they feel like they have to steal the fruitfulness that you are not able to celebrate, and they have to put that spotlight back on them. The next point is getting others to do their dirty works. They really are big on poking the bear and running away. They want to constantly have clean hands. So in the psychology aspect of it, they call it flying monkeys, where the Jezebel spirit will stay all clean and prissy, or the narcissist will stay all clean and prissy, like, I didn't do anything wrong, but will have everyone around them really as users. They use all those people, and the people are really only there because there's some benefit to being around the narcissistic spirit, or because they're in delusion and they're fooled. So they just think that everything is all good, and they'll gaslight you if you try to bring light to what the narcissist is doing or the Jezebel spirit is doing. And they're the ones who does all the dirty work. They're the ones who, if you ever watched one of those movies or one of those TV shows where the Jezebel spirit will set out the hit for someone to be, killed. They'll set out a hit on that person, but they'll have one of their hitmen who's always on staff, always on payroll, go do the hit. So they keep their hands clean, but they're just as guilty as a person who committed the crime, because they were the brains behind the operations. They were the ones who premeditated the offense. So the Jezebel spirit is very infamous for being the one who gets all the shine and all the glory, but is really just as bad as the people that she manipulates or he manipulates to go and do the dirty work for them. Control issues. So it's essentially someone who is like a control freak. They cannot let anybody else do anything without them hovering over them. That could look like, if you do have a boss that's really a micromanager, it could look like a parent who is constantly wanting to control every outcome, whether it's them needing to be in the delivery room, controlling every nurse, telling everybody what to do. Maybe it's them constantly being in control of your dating life, always telling you who to date, where to go. Oh, I have my friend, she has this nephew, you have to talk to him. Or it just is not in the innocent way of like, okay, yeah, if you have a mom or an aunt that cares about you, they're gonna try to hook you up from time to time. But this is someone who goes beyond that, and they're controlling every dynamic. Say this to him, tell him this, you're gonna wear this dress, You're going to go back on the next date and you're going to, if he asks you to marry him, you're going to marry him because he has money or he has this. It's always needing to be in control. It could be someone in a friends group who is needing to control the dynamics. Maybe they'll constantly be like telling you what to do, but never wants to be the one to participate in the crime or in that behavior, but they're always telling you and suggesting to you, like, I just want to see what happens. You should try it though. I'm not gonna do it, but you should try it. Or they're they're like, oh, you're my friend, so you can't be friends with this person. Or you're my friend, so you can't wear that. You're my friend, so you can't date him. It's just goes beyond allowing people to just be who they are, and it's constantly needing to control everything that's going on. It doesn't matter if they do it with a smile and a flower dress on, or if they're wearing all black and they have a black space on and this black lip. It doesn't matter what they look like. Just remember how you feel when you're around that person. And if you ever felt like, wow, I didn't get a word in, I feel gaslit, then you might be dealing with an Jezebel spirit. And when you're constantly having to deal with that spirit, it likely gets into you, and then you become someone who operates with some of those traits. And that's not a woman who's able to be feminine. A man dealing with a woman with that spirit is going to either have to be Ahab, where he's going to have to be emasculated and weak and usurp his authority, give over his authority to her, or he's going to be constantly trying to fight her where they're just all out warring because they're constantly in a power struggle. Jezebel does not want her husband. The person operating with the Jezebel spirit does not want a man to be their head, to be their leader. They do not want God's proper order. They want their order. And whatever that looks like, even if it's sinful, even if it's them having to excuse sin just to make sure that they get their way, they will do that. They don't care about the Bible. They don't care about religion. They use something in psychology called like a religious psychosis, where they're spewing out scriptures at you that they don't have to live by, but they're requiring you to live by and trying to shame you and guilt you into being what they want you to be. And then the last point that I wanted to give an example of was that they destroy those who get in their way because they have that I get what I want mentality. That means that if they see someone who's not falling in line, that person now becomes their number one worst enemy. It's not enough that, okay, well, I see I can't, manipulate this person, I'm going to move on. That's in a family dynamic where it's the scapegoat or the black sheep of the family. They make that person feel so ostracized, and like them speaking up and having in mind for themselves and wanting to set healthy boundaries makes them evil and just, oh, they're not honoring their parent. But the Bible says that parents should not provoke their children to anger. So they want to have half truths and half read a scripture and not read the rest of the verse so that they can manipulate you or that child or that person, and they make everyone else turn against that one child. I saw a clip of one of those TikTok commercials where there's this movie playing and it's so dramatic, and essentially this was what it was. It was a family who had a daughter and they had a stepdaughter, but they didn't know it was a stepdaughter. They thought that that daughter was theirs as well. But one of the maids, I believe, like switched something at birth, so they thought that the real daughter was a stepdaughter and the stepdaughter was their real daughter. And essentially, they just kept coming down on that girl. She was telling them the truth. Everything she said was true, but they just were so manipulated by the